I stepped out the room.
No worries. No worries. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Wednesday, June 8th, and we want to welcome you to today's webinar, a part of the Pre-Matchmaker webinar training series. As we're ramping up for the Ohio Business Matchmaker, as you can tell my background there. And today's webinar training is going to be on changes to SAM, the System for Award Management. So if any of you are looking to do business with the federal government, or if you're already doing business with the federal government, or maybe you're a sub doing business at the federal with a federal agency, you know that any federal vendor must be registered in SAM, System for Award Management. And there have been quite a few changes to SAM within over the past couple of years, but especially within the past year. So it's definitely important to stay in tune and on top of the different changes that have taken place. But more importantly, this webinar is a part of a series leading up to the Ohio Business Matchmaker. And we don't take for granted, some of you may be seasoned veterans and pros and have attended many matchmakers in the past. But essentially, the Ohio Business Matchmaker is our signature contracting event and an opportunity where several resource partners, the SBA, Small Business Administration, the Ptac, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, the State Ohio Department of Development, the Minority Business Assistance Centers, the MBACs, essentially come together to put on this large contracting event. And it's an opportunity where small businesses get a chance to meet up with government agencies at the federal, state, city, county level. And you have an opportunity to meet with procurement specialists, federal, state, city, county buyers, those that have purchasing authority that are looking to buy goods and services from small businesses. And what an actual great time as things are starting to open up and we're transitioning out of the pandemic. So hopefully, if this is your first time, you'll find that you will have that opportunity to sit down and pitch your capability statement in front of a government or a purchasing agent from one of the government agencies or entities. I forgot to mention, my name is Shonda Harris. I'm a business opportunity specialist with the Columbus SBA. And again, we're just grateful to be able to bring this webinar to you today in partnership with the Ptac and other resource partners. Just a couple housekeeping items. This is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on two locations on the actual Matchmaker website. So some of you may have registered on the website in order for this training and other trainings. So there's a tab where you can access the recording for all of the webinars we're doing, as well as the slides from today. In addition to being posted on the Matchmaker site, it will also be posted on the OU Ptac site as well, Ohio University Ptac site. So you can take advantage of those. With that, also, our presenter today, as he's presenting, if you do have questions, we ask that you put those in the chat, and I'll try to address those as he gets a break. So without further ado, I want to invite our speaker today, Mr. Billy Grill, who is an associate director with the Ohio Ptac in the Dayton area. Hope I got his title correctly. So I want to give Billy the opportunity to take it from here. Again, if you do have questions, just put those in the chat. Billy?
Thanks, Shonda. I appreciate it. You'll have to excuse my voice. I've been running on caffeine and Dayquil for the last 2 days because of some allergy stuff. But I appreciate everybody taking the time. We have a fairly small group, which is great because we are going to do a demo later on in the presentation. So if you guys have anything specific that you want to see, search, questions, always happy to run through it with you live, and you know, show you exactly how we make the meal here. But overall, I'm going to run through about 20 slides. I'm not a big fan of you know, running 2 hours of slides, so we'll get through it fairly quickly. We'll get to the demo, we'll get to the live site, and then start just doing examples and playing around with it. So again, thank you for coming out today and taking the time. You know, hopefully it's we can show you a thing or two. Let's see. Everybody see the presentation? Good to go?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
So the most important thing in the first slide is going to be my contact info. I'm always happy to help. We can get you to the right Ptac if you're out of state, but you know, overall, free for any questions. Yeah, always available. You have all my information there, and never hesitate. I mean, you guys are the reason we exist. So definitely feel free to pepper me with questions and problems. So what we're doing today is actually the IAE, the Integrated Award Environment, built by GSA. Basically, it's a modernization of legacy systems. They're pulling the data together. They're trying to streamline business with the government. You know, what does that mean for you? It means that you have to learn how to use the system, and we'll go through the different domains. Most importantly, you'll probably be looking at the contract opportunities domain, but there's so much more capability in the system that you can unlock if you take some time and run through it. But first, I want to let you know a little bit about the Ptac. Most of you are familiar. You know, we basically help small businesses navigate the nuance of working with government. And that's everything from one-on-one consulting, education like we're doing today. We do a bid matching service that's hugely valuable. I mean, that's it covers 2,800 different databases, federal, state, and local. So you're basically getting tailored opportunity email to your inbox every day. And then we also have market intelligence research. We'll run through some of that in SAM, but we also have internal tools like FedMine and EasyGov and I am a data wonk, so never hesitate to ask me to bulldog data for you, get you specifics. I do it all the time for clients. It's a huge part of what we do, because really our mission is to educate, inform, and prepare. So we want to educate you on standards, compliance, process, etc., inform you on the current landscape, and then prepare you to be successful. And this is the range of services. As you can see, we do everything from soup to nuts. I like to say factory to foxhole. Basic SAM registrations, which is getting more difficult by the day, all the way through post-award considerations and negotiation. So no matter where your company is in that evolution of working with the government, we can add some value and be a resource there. So the IAE, this is a little dated because there's no more beta.SAM.gov, it's just SAM.gov now. But you'll see they're basically amalgamation of systems that are coming together. The government loves to do this. They like to consolidate and pull all the data together and put it in one big system. So really what's going to happen is the essential systems to work with the government are all going to be a part of this IAE, Integrated Award Environment. And that's everything from reporting through past performance. So it's coming with some hiccups. No perfect system, but we definitely have our challenges here. So we're going to try to help you work through it. Other than that, it's something that it is what it is. You have to work with this system. It's the front store for the federal government. Anything over $25,000 has to be posted to SAM. If you want to work on any federal contract, you have to be registered. So it's just something that we have to work through. So when you prepare for your entity registration, first things first, you need a login.gov credential, which is also useful because it tags other government systems that you may need to get into. And then the important part is the notarized entity administrator letter. That's basically a letter stating that you are in charge of your entity and you're able to make changes to it. And I'll go through some roles later on when we get into the demo. But basically, you're going to be your company's POC. And you'll make more POCs for electronic business, government business, things like that. But the entity administrator that's supposed to be the POC. And now you'll also need business documents. They're doing a validation of business information. So Secretary of State, LLC, cert, you'll need articles of organization, utility bills to prove address, things like that. And we'll go through that process here in a little bit. Basically, what's happening is they are getting rid of the DUNS because they don't want a third party to have control of their unique entity identifiers. So they're running the unique entity identifier through their system, which means that you have to work within that system. The changes are, well, they've been complex. They're not always perfect, and there's definitely been some hiccups, but it's a change of process that we're going to have to deal with, and hopefully the Ptac can help you get through that without too much consternation. So when you go through your purpose of registration, you're going through all awards or financial assistance only. Financial assistance only is pretty much your grants.gov type of opportunities. Excuse me. But overall, most of you, if not 100% of you, you'll be interested in all awards. So we'll go through the unique entity ID process, core data, assertions, reps and certs, FARs, DFARs. A lot of this has stayed the same throughout. Even when they migrated beta.sam and SAM.gov, they basically just migrated the website and the process. The only real change that's happening is that unique entity ID, but it's a big change, and it's definitely got a lot of implications. And then we'll also hit the SBA supplemental page. It's a best practice to have your profile on there, and I could spend another hour just going through that process. But overall, basically, you want your CAPE statement available. Contracting officers, they search there first. They're looking for companies with capability, certain set asides, things like that. So you definitely want to be present. So for your UEI, you need your legal business name, and that's very important to get it exact. They are very tedious when they're looking at things like that. So you want to make sure that if it's a comma LLC or if it's a abbreviation, you definitely want to make note of that. And then your physical address, your date of incorporation, and your state of incorporation. A lot of that stuff we can pull online from the Secretary of State, but in order to get validated, you need to basically submit that information. This sounds bad, but hope and pray that they find you in the database. If not, then we'll have to create an incident and upload that information to validate your overall business info. There's been some issues with that. It's getting better. and we are validating more businesses now. But my advice to my clients is, if you have a renew date coming up, start early and be prepared. So in order to validate your different types of business information, these are all the documents, and you can see a screenshot to the right. Basically, what you're doing is you're creating an incident. So they've moved the help desk for validation into the workspace, and it sounds confusing, but I'll show you firsthand when we do the demo. Basically, what you're doing is you're uploading documents to validate your business, prove you are who you say you are, and you live where you say you live. But then you have to manage it through your workspace as well. So it's useless calling the Federal Service Desk. They're a great resource, but they can't be a resource for this. So you're really kind of at their mercy, when they're getting to your documents and validating. Once you get validated, which could be a process. Again, start early, be prepared. It could take you a little while to get that validation. But once you get validated, then you're running through the basics, the core data. Your MPIN, always have your MPIN. I walk more clients through resetting their MPIN than not, quite honestly. So that's always good to have. Your UEI, you definitely want to make note of it, and I would suggest keeping your DUNS around just for a while, because it's a transition. So you're talking about hundreds of government systems that use that number, and it's all flow down from SAM, because SAM is the authoritative data source. So it's going to take a little while, and it's always good to have handy. So the next section, your Irs Consent, that's your TIN. You won't have your cage code, because that's what you get after you're done registering. The important part here is your financial info. If you transpose a number in your bank account, then you're basically starting over. There's really no good way to get back to it to correct it. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the details. And when we walk you through this, we'll make sure you get a heads up, and make sure you're paying attention. But the important part is having the documentation handy. So have your bank account info, have your Secretary of State certification, LLC, corporation, et cetera, et cetera. Have all that right there, so that it's handy and we can walk through the process. Next section is goods and services. That's where you put in your NAICS and PSC codes. NAICS codes are your North American Industrial Classification System codes. PSC codes are your product service codes. They will be handy throughout your business life. So you definitely want to know, and you want to make sure you dial them in. You don't want 23 NAICS codes in your profile, because then that tells the contracting officer that you're kind of just throwing them out there, and you're not really technically doing all of that. So that's another reason why we help. We get you dialed in. I know NAICS codes almost like the back of my hand, which is a terrible thing, but product service codes are also really handy, and they will be your business resume. I mean, you're using those codes. That's how contracting officers and teammates see you. So you want to make sure you get them right. And then we'll go through size metrics. Manufacturing, it's 500, 1500. IT, it's usually 15, 30 million. So you want to pay attention to your overall revenue when you're entering that metric. And that way you're ensured that the SBA is going to put on your profile that you're a small business. Outside of that, there's a disaster response registry, which is, it's basically like a FEMA registry where if there's a disaster, you're putting your name on the list. You can do geography. It's mostly construction and service, SEA, Service Contract Act, where you're providing boots on grounds, construction, HVAC, the MEPs, manufacturing, engineering, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's always an option. And if you do, then you'll have to look at bonding. Bonding is a tough issue for small business. It's a chicken and egg. Either you have everything you need and you're good, or you can't get it, but you can't get bonding because you don't have it. So definitely something we don't usually help with, but we have some insight in.
Billy?
Yes.
We have a question in the chat. Well, now two. One, can you obtain your NAICS codes and PSC codes for free of charge? Some websites are out there trying to get some individuals to pay for them. So can you get those free?
Oh, certainly. Definitely reach out to your Ptac. We can do the research. I probably know them off the top of my head. It just it boils my blood that those guys are trying to charge. That brings up another great point. Never pay a company to do your SAM registration. We do it for free, and we give you the entity administrator authority. So when you pay a company $500 or whatever, they're actually taking over entity administrator authority. And so when you have to get it back, it's a real pain. That, and it's a waste of money. So definitely reach out to your Ptac. There's a lot of emails that they send out for marketing that are disguised as government emails. So watch out for those. And definitely, just give us a holler if you have a question.
Okay, thank you. The second one was in reference in that, so it's I think we're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, and keep the questions coming, guys. This is interactive. I'm an open book. If I can answer it, more than happy to. If not, then we can always research and get you an answer. So your reps and certs, these are they're pretty important. Basically, you're going through the Federal Acquisition Regulation. You're providing responses to certify that your company does this, doesn't do that, is this. It's something that we can help you walk through. It's legalese, so it does. It's not necessarily the easiest questions to answer because they're basically typed up in Federal Acquisition Regulation talk, quite honestly. So we can help you get through that, answer them correctly, get you the defense response. Basically, do you wish to bid on defense contracts? Now you have to make sure that you're aware of the implication there. Defense contracts have a different standard and compliance than civil, so we'll help you through that process. But we act as a trusted advisor, so we can again educate, inform, and prepare. But we cannot execute on your behalf. So that's a decision you'll have to make. And then you go through your points of contact, accounts receivable, electronic business, government business. The important one there is your government business POC, because they'll be the first contacted. So make sure that those stay up to date. My rule of thumb is, depending on the size of your company, you probably want 2 entity administrators. I always go by the hit by a bus scenario, business continuity, to make sure that you have a backup there. And then you always want to have an updated government business point of contact. The other two are important as well, but that'll be your first line of defense. And if you ever need help getting to them, then always reach out. We can get you there pretty easy. And before you submit, you're always asked about these small SBA dynamic small business search. It's basically your online capability statement. It's a best practice to fill it out. I've been having a lot of problems getting to it from SAM. And they just took the link off. So I went ahead and linked some instructions on how to get tied to your company through the general login system for SBA. It's definitely good to have it up to date and have your info current. And we can always help you out with that. You're adding a narrative, you're adding capabilities, you can add past performance. It's just a host of information there that gets your company's capabilities out there in the public. So definitely a best practice. And if you have any questions at all on that, always available. It's something that I really enjoy, getting your keywords right, getting your narrative, getting the information out there in a good way.
Billy?
Yeah.
Another question, and maybe when you go to the live transition, you can show something with the SAM and then the SBA profile. Someone said that they just brought up their SAM profile, and it shows their UEI, and they want to know, is this now the ID number they need to keep rather than the DUNS number?
Correct. So you'll see later on in the presentation that you're going to want to update some pieces of information. You update your capability statement with your UEI. I would keep the DUNS number handy, just because we don't really understand the ripple effect and how many systems may kind of hitch back without our knowing. But the UEI is authoritative. As of April 4th, everything switched over. It's now your authoritative unique identifier. So that's a really important number. If you're working with primes and different teammates, you might want to notify them of your number. But I'll show you how to get it in SAM as well. But it's definitely it's a monumental change. It's going to have long-lasting implications, and we'll try to prepare you for those. But in the meantime, get your UEI, update your capability statement, update your primes, and just start using it. So some other changes, effective October 21st, 2021. Certain entities registering in SAM will not be assigned a cage code. This one really threw me off. Me and Jane Stewart, a colleague of mine, were noodling this one for a while. But basically, if you're registering for financial assistance only, and you're one of those entities, then you'll no longer be assigned a cage code. So now you're just relying on your UEI. Which is scary, but that's their process. And also, if you're in the R&D space, this is another one Jane sent me. She's been on the ball lately. Basically, they've noticed the problems with your UEI, and they are going to give you a waive why you get that shored up. And this is just for the SBIR process, the Small Business Innovation Research process. Basically, that's America's seed fund. So if you're in R&D and you're going after grant funding, that's where you would go. And it's a small update with big impact, because we plenty of clients that are going after that grant funding. So if you are in the R&D space, definitely reach out. Let me know how I can help. We can get you through the SAM process while also getting you registered in DSIP and getting you prepared for that, those submissions. Best practices. Have your documentation ready. I will give you a checklist. It's complete, 1 to Z. It'll tell you everything you need to have. If you have that, and then we do a Zoom, we can run through it in probably a half hour, 45 minutes. But also be familiar with your FAR and DFAR, because you are certifying and representing that your company is compliant with those. And if you ever have any questions on those, I take classes on those so that you guys don't have to. It's brutal, but it's necessary. And then read through the SAM registration guide. Basically it's going to run you through every screen and every piece of info. But when in doubt, the easy button is contacting your local Ptac. We're here, we do it every day, and we're pretty familiar with the system. So always here to assist.
Billy, we have another question, or someone has put in the chat that they entered their DUNS number when they registered their business. However, the information was not retained, and this led them to not being able to register for certain certifications, and they're still awaiting a resolution. Have you heard of that, or has that been an issue you've heard from other clients?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So they entered their DUNS instead of their UEI, I'm guessing, is what I will assume. Yeah, I mean, that could definitely gunk things up. So what you want to do is, the Federal Service Desk has a 800 number, and we can hop on a call with you. I'll sit on the call and make sure that they're aware of the issue and see if they, either you're going to wipe your update, or if you're lucky, the Federal Service Desk can change that. So that's a resource that's great when you're working with SAM.gov. The current issue is you can't call the 1-800 number for your entity validation. So all that has to be done online. But other problems like that, I mean, they're definitely available.
Thank you. And then the second part to that, she received several emails that they were aware of the issue and they were working on it, but it's delaying her ability to register for certain certifications.
I'm again assuming that those are SBA certifications or SDVOSB. Yeah, we can help you get prepared for those in the meantime. I mean, you can work in parallel, get your documentation ready, get everything prepared while you're waiting on that resolution. I think that's probably the best use of your time. And we're a resource for that as well. I've worked through the WSB process numerous times now. Beta.certify is, again, when you do a huge migration like that, you have hiccups. But Beta.certify is, it's working a lot better now. So always happy to help you out and get you prepared. So the last slide, Federal Service Desk knowledge base. I probably use it more than any of you guys will ever, but at the same time, it's a huge knowledge base of information. So if you have any questions, again, the easy button is always just give me a call. But overall, if it's pertaining to SAM, they have a document. They went through and updated all their starter guides. They've updated their checklists. They've done a lot of work. So they're definitely on the ball there. And then again, my contact information, email, office, cell. I'm available. Always happy to help. It's not the easiest environment to work in from time to time, but overall it's necessary. So we'll hop right in and just take a look and start breaking stuff. Okay, do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So first things first, you log in. Set yourself up a login, and you can go through the process, but you have to have that notarized entity administrator letter within 60 days. So that's very important. Now, you don't have to mail it in. You can actually attach it to a help desk ticket with the Federal Service Desk, which makes it a little bit quicker. And we can walk you through that process. It's pretty simple. I'm just going to get through the double authentication here. All right. So basically, this is your home base. This is your workspace. Anything you have to do with your organization, it will be here. You'll see active registrations, work in progress, submitted, ID assigned, pending ID. But this is also where you can renew and register your entity. My advice is, if your entity is due up soon, definitely get a jump on it. If it's not due up soon, then push it off as long as you can, because they're still working through issues. So it's basically best left alone unless you need it. But they have all the reporting here. Your user directory is really important. That's where you're assigning roles. So basically, you're assigning, you have the entity administrator role, then you have the the data administrator role and the viewer role. If you're looking at opportunities, then you probably want to be connected with your company so that you can say you're interested in the opportunities. You can get tech docs. A lot of capability there that's needed, but it's as simple as just selecting a role and adding it. As long as you're the entity administrator, so that's the important piece here. But overall, they've simplified roles. I think it was 5 before, they're down to 2 or 3. So it's pretty basic. We can help you strategize about who should have what role. I'm biased, but I think business development should have all of them. But your contracting is going to need some. You'll probably need some here and there. So definitely let us know. Basically, your viewer is viewing everything, but doesn't have a lot of entry capability. The entry is exactly that. You can update the entity and your data, but you cannot delete the entity. The only role that can delete the entity is the entity administrator, which is it's why you use that role sparingly. You don't want to just give it to anybody, but at the same time, you usually want to have a backup. And then if we look on the right-hand side here, this is my most used part. So downloads, following, and save searches. Basically, what happens is when you're attached to your company, you can follow opportunities to make sure that you get updates every time that they're updated. With a really handy tool. It's the same thing with save searches. You can set up a notify schedule and save your searches so that it emails you whenever that search result has changed. The email brings you right back to SAM, so it's not perfect yet, but definitely a lot of added capability. I like taking my clients through the save search process, because while we give a great value add with our bid match emails, you should always have your separate SAM emails updating you, because you just never know. You don't want anything to fall through the cracks. Again, anything over $25,000 has to be posted to SAM one way or another, even if it's just a notice. So it's going to be your authoritative data source for government contracting and opportunity. And you'll see, I basically all of these are just kind of demo, but you'll see you can edit the name, you can duplicate the opportunity. So say I want to run a search for construction in Indiana. I can duplicate it, then change it to Ohio, and then run statewide searches that way. And you can also notify, which is really handy if you don't want to be on SAM every day. Back to the workspace. And we will cover opportunities we're following. Now here's the kind of quagmire about opportunities we're following. You'll see that they follow by contract number, which makes it fairly difficult, especially when you have 20, 30 opportunities you're looking at. It just looks like gobbledygook. So you can download those opportunities. But again, if they're updated, then it'll send you an email notification. You'll have to go in, check the opportunities, see what the amendment is, et cetera, et cetera. And you can also do this so my advice when you're running searches on SAM.gov, you want to run them in buckets. So if you're an IT company, you run a search based on networking, you run a search based on custom computing, run a search based on data, and you niche those searches so that you're getting good information, but more importantly, so that you can get that information to the right people in your organization. That's really what it's about. It's about getting actionable information out of the system, which sometimes is harder than you think. But overall, that's why we're here, to help you get to those nuggets. Then you have your basic notifications. You can see a lot of the following opportunities. They were updated. And it gives you all your subscriptions as well. So you can manage anything in your workspace. And it's important to get comfortable here. So, that's the first thing you do. Get comfortable with your workspace, know your options, know where the buttons are, because they sometimes aren't intuitive. So definitely important to do that.
Billy, we have a couple of, I'm gonna, I think, address this one question now, and then I have two that I'll bring up a little later, but one, I think someone is a little confused. He is actually on SAM.gov, the actual training site, and he's doing a live demo, but they were just a little confused if you were searching for contracts, and they're just saying some of the language they're not sure of, and where could they find a handbook or a guide to give them more information on some of the terms and languages that you're using?
No, that's a great question. I'll walk through we'll walk through the different domains. All of these are different domains here in this blue box. And basically what they are is they're different capability. They all come from a different legacy system that was migrated. So they all have fairly different data, but they all serve their purpose. Well, except for federal hierarchy, I'm not a big fan. I think I'll show you where to get the better information than what they do with this domain. But for the help, every page has help. And also this green feedback button, very important, because they are agile developed. So they take your feedback and they start prioritizing changes. So if you really want to change made, let your voice be heard. They really do read it. I'm a firsthand knowledge that they get those. So it's not going into the ether and that kind of thing. So when you click on help, there's top trends, find what's new, which is a lot. They've been updating the system pretty regularly, but I would usually just go over here to FSD. So this is your Federal Service Desk. And there's all your information. Again, the Ptac's the easy button, but this is handy and it's immediate. So definitely run through it. They've updated all their guides. They've updated a lot of different stuff here. And you'll be able to access the help on every page in the feedback. So they've definitely made it apparent to get to the resources you need. All right, we'll give you a quick introduction to the different domains, what they do, what's useful, and then we'll run through a couple of them. I don't think we're going to go through contract data today, but I'll show you another resource around that. And I can always help you set up contract data reports. They're a little complex for the time slot we have, but basically contract data is all of the past federal contracts. It's technically half of the federal procurement data system. So anything over $10,000 that was awarded over the last, I think since 2008, is included in the system. And you can run custom reports on just a huge number of different qualifiers. But we'll show you the basic reports and kind of how to navigate. I think the one everybody's interested in is going to be contract opportunities. This is the one. So in order to look at entity information, they're going to want you to sign it. But in order to look at contract opportunities, you don't have to. So even if your interns, your marketing guys that you're outsourcing, they can access these opportunities as well. All right, so the search criteria on the left-hand side, get comfortable with that. And it's really a lot of what we covered before. So you're going to want to know your NAICS codes, product service codes. You're going to want to know your different set-asides. They cover the bases there. My advice is to start off broad. So I always go a NAICS code. Does anybody have any suggestions on a NAICS code? Does anybody want to see a search run specific to their company?
Somebody typed in 1488510.
All right, let's go with it.
And then another one for landscaping if you want to do one after that.
Sure. If I don't fat finger it. Okay, freight transportation. All right, so, well, that 8 results. You're pretty good there. But what you want to do is you still want to narrow this down. Freight transportation, that's a broad NAICS code. You don't want to be looking at opportunities that are already in the RFP phase. You want to go early in the acquisition lifecycle. So I always set up a search that is just your source of salt and pre-solicitation. And now what that does is it'll notify me whenever an RFI comes up. Responding to RFIs is important. I know it's not going to end up directly with ROI, but overall, if you need to persuade the requirement or the set aside, I mean, that's where you're going to do it. And it's also your first touch point with customers. So always, always, always throw your hat in and do a good job. Don't just send them your capability statement. They hate that. You know, take your time and use your Ptac. We can always assist you there. But that's really where you start that opportunity development. And you start massaging that opportunity so that you have the advantage. And it's, you know, time to build the team, time to talk to the client right after submission. A lot happens in that RFI phase. So definitely save yourself an RFI search. I would probably save one per capability. And then, you know, whenever you get a ping, take a look and see if it fits. All right, so that was freight management. Landscaping. I know this one. I'm going to cheat, guys. Five 561-730. All right, since you're going landscaping, that's usually pretty geographical, pretty local. So what you're going to want to do is come down here to the place of performance. This is another update they made last year that I really like. You can actually add multiple states. So we'll go Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. So when you're not getting results, you're too narrow, and you can always adjust as we fly. So there you go, and that's with landscaping as a NAICS code. They're usually RFQs. They don't do a ton of RFIs. I can tell you a lot of the landscaping here local is going to be run out of U.S. Army Corps of Engineers out of Louisville and Wright Pat. So if you need an introduction to the civil engineering group at Wright Pat or the U.S. ACE district down there in Louisville, never hesitate. We can help you out, help you get prepared for that. So 18 results. I'm going to use an example here to really blow it up. So we will go with engineering services. So you have 1,700 results. You obviously don't want all of those results. So basically, you're going to start playing with this criteria on the left. You will see that this mirrors USA spending, which is all the past contracts. So what I like to do with my clients is set up a good search in USA spending, see who's buying what you're selling, and then translate that search over to SAM.gov so that you have consistency across the board. in USA Spending, they have a ton of great graphs and things like that for when you have PMRs. So definitely a useful resource. I'll probably touch that in a minute, but for now, I'm going to answer Sharon's question. How would you search for competitors? Okay, so this is all of your domains. Your assistance listings, that's basically federal grant money. Most of that's going to the states. I don't think it's anything you guys would be interested in. Then you have entity information. That's where we'll get company information. The federal hierarchy, it's just not well populated. I don't think it's a useful resource, so we're going to skip it. But then wage determinations, those are all of your Davis-Bacon and service contract wages. Basically, your determined wage for contracts, and a really simple database to use. Great when you're having to bid things that include that. So, your competitors. I would be looking here, but quite honestly, you can go keyword search and you can run it through SAM. I would rather run it through USA Spend. Again, you guys can see it's very similar search criteria. Just do the last 6 years, that's recent relevant. Throw the NAICS code in there. And now this will be really broad, but you can start narrowing it down. You can narrow it down by agency. You can narrow it down by treasury symbol. You can get to where you need to be with the data, but it's always good to start broad.
Billy?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? Were you finished showing the competitors? I'm sorry for Sharon's question.
Oh, certainly. I was just kind of so quick example. When you click on the link, it shows you a huge amount of valuable data. So trending top 5 awarding agencies, sub agencies, NAICS codes, product service codes. A good tip for you guys is search the most successful business in your industry and then mirror their NAICS codes and their product service codes. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But you can get a wealth of information out of this. The trick here is you take this UEI, which again is their unique identifier, and then we're going to look for some contact info. So if you want to reach out to a teammate or just get more about the company, that UEI is going to pop up their name in the system. And more times than not, they'll have some good contact info. Now, again, not every company updates their contact info. A lot of them won't have numbers, but we can get you halfway there. And then we also have internal tools like FedMine and Easy GovOps, where we can get you actual contact information. So never hesitate to use this as a resource there. Everything from contracting officers through your electronic business points of contact. Now that's a bad example because it's MITRE. So these guys are probably unreachable, but I'd be willing to bet that FedMine had some better contacts. But overall, if you need to get from A to B, that's what you do. You're pulling this UEI. Again, that's going to be the authoritative identifier from here on out. And that's what you'll use in every system. Did that answer you, Sharon, or were you looking for something else? I'll just assume that I answered it, but we can always do a follow-up.
Okay, someone, and she may have stepped away for a minute, or maybe a call came through, and she can't respond. When you were doing the search on the NAICS, the 488510, Reiku says she was confused about which, how it lists the different notice types. So which notice type should she do a search on for available opportunities? And then why are some of the dates past due for like household goods? And then is there a certain thing that she should be focusing on within the documents? I guess there were, the search that you did, there were like 122. So she just kind of had some questions about those.
And all great points. So the way it sorts the search is going to be relevance, which means that given the NAICS code, there could be some opportunities that were past due. One way to get around that is to work on the dates. What I like to do when I'm searching for RFP, I'm going to run this. We'll just do next week. So I usually like a week to respond. Leave the to date open, and that way it'll pull everything that's due a week out until eternity. That's how you get that search set up. And you want to make sure that you're not getting opportunities that you have to respond to tomorrow, because that's counterproductive. So you definitely want this search set up, and we can walk you through the process. I take time with my clients all the time to set them up specific searches, give them some tricks of the trade and things like that. For instance, if you wanted to look at all of the industry events. So the government agencies, they actually post their events to SAM.gov as well, which I think is just as valuable as the opportunities. It's a chance to connect to the client, and it's always done through your special notice. So when I run my clients through this, I usually have them set up 2 to 3 searches for RFIs per NAICS code or capability keyword. If you work with a certain software, that's always a good keyword. If you do a very specific process like supply chain risk management, that's always a good keyword. One of the keys is to know your client's language. So if they use a certain acronym, you want to know that, and that's definitely helpful when running some of these searches to help you get dialed in. But for the industry days, it will always be a special notice, and we can just type industry day. And there's your opportunities. I mean, you can also go and put in NAICS codes 541, 541 to narrow it down a bit. This is a search you definitely want to have saved because that's your chance to connect. And this is the authoritative data source. So if they're having an event for that agency, they're going to post it here. And you can also go place of performance, since we're getting back in person here. And there you go. It goes from too many to not enough. But you can dial it in. That's the whole purpose of this criteria here on the left. You definitely want to play around with it, get comfortable with it. get what I call the Goldilocks mix. You don't want 3,000 opportunities, but you don't want 0. So you want to get somewhere comfortable in between. Using our bid match system as a supplement to this, you can really dial in and get some pretty good value.
Thank you. And what I'd say, as far as looking at a specific opportunity rate, Rico, hopefully I'm saying your name right. I would encourage you to follow up with your Ptac counselor, and then they can kind of walk you through. Rayco, thank you. Rayco, you want to follow up with your specific Ptac counselor based on where you live, and then they can walk you through actually doing, you know, something one-on-one so that they can walk you through it. You can pick out a specific opportunity and they can answer any questions. And then that way, I think it'll be a little bit more helpful for you.
Yeah, I do a whole hour-and-a-half, 2-hour market research session, which hits SAM.gov. It'll hit USAspending.gov. I'll help you set up searches there. And we go through GovCon Chamber. We go through acquisition.gov. Basically, the tools you need to build a pipeline. Now, it's not the end-all be-all. I always like to tell my clients that even though we're guided by the federal acquisition regulation, it's still very much a relationship-based business. And that's why I always tell clients to set up that industry-based search. I send out notices when they come across my desk if if they apply to you, if I think that it's a good one. So that just different opportunities to connect, network, build your teammates. As a small business, you're not going to be able to compete in the federal market without having a good stable of teammates and network. It's just the way of the world, honestly, because you're competing with larger smalls, you're competing with primes, big boys. So there's definitely something to be said about getting out there and networking. I always go make a friend, basically, but work with people you know, like, and trust, and build that stable so that you can compete. And then the next thing I wanted to show you was entity information. One thing about entity information, if I'm teaming with somebody and I don't know them well, I'm going to go to the exclusions database. I want to know if anybody in their company's been debarred. Just a quick sanity check, honestly. It only takes a minute, and it reassures you that you're making the right choice. But the exclusions database is right there. Your disaster response registry is listed, but I want the entity information. All right, so when you're searching for your entity, you're not going to have your UEI yet unless you go to your workspace, and you can get it that way. So if I go here, then I can grab my UEI. But you can also get it from searching the left-hand criteria. Very similar to contract search, keywords, NAICS codes, things like that.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. So basically, same criteria, very similar. You can do that to get to your entity, and I'm supposed to reset my MPIN apparently. But the other thing I wanted, now it's not going to cooperate. We'll do this then. So when you're teaming with people and you have everybody putting together a proposal, they all have that section K, which is certs and reps. So if you ever need to manage your team, you can always just pull their certs and reps from here. So let's do let's go for green tree. I tell you, my fingers are not working. Okay, so you have a teammate, Green Tree, and you want to pull their reps and certs. You can pull their whole record. You can download it, you can follow it. They have an active registration, they have a current record, but what you're really interested in is the reps and certs. So you can pull their current record, and you can pull the FAR or the FAR and DFARs. I always pull both. Click on PDF. And now what that's going to give you, not having to run through the rigmarole of Section K, but it's also going to tell you what their assertions are, whether or not they're a small business in certain NAICS codes. And in a company like Green Tree or any other teammate, really, you just want to be sure, because that's enough to get you DQ'd from an opportunity. But you can see all this information. It's all public. You can check if companies are women-owned small businesses. There's the easier way to do that. But all of this is available for download. Same with the whole profile, company contact info, etc. So it's all there. If you ever have any trouble searching for it, you can always reach out and we can help you through that. We also have internal tools which give you a little bit more complete information, a little bit different user interface. But overall, this is all public and free. Okay, so federal organizations, that's the next domain. The federal hierarchy domain. Not a big fan. So my advice is to use these agency profiles instead. There's over 100 of them. They have everything from budget justifications through strategic plans. Basically, what you want to do is when you're starting to pick out who's buying what you're selling, you're building that target list, you're building the pipeline of opportunities. Do your research. You want to speak their language. You want to know who's in there. You want to do competitive intel. You want to know what's coming up. So you want forecasts. All of that takes time. It takes a lot of elbow grease. But if you target right and you have a good idea of how your capability fits, then you can message that to the client, which will make a much bigger impact than just sending them a blanket capability statement and saying, hey, I'm a small business. You have to put in more work than that. And we can help you do that. Really what you're doing is you're building out that client profile. So if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, boom, it's a duck. And then you target 5 other ducks. It's based on strategy, strategic mission, technology base if you're an IT company. So there's different aspects that we can use to get you targeted down. That way you're prioritizing your time and outreach, and hopefully improving your response and your momentum and traction. It's not easy, but it's definitely something you want to think through when you're going through your yearly planning and putting that marketing approach together. So a ton of good data here. I go down rabbit holes all the time with this stuff. So you want to be careful, use your time wisely. Hopefully we can distill some of that data for you, get you some actionable information. I always tell my clients, I'm not here to add an hour to your day. If anything, I'm hopefully a trusted advisor that can take an hour off. So, let us help you get through this, make sense of it, make it actionable. The other one I want to run through is wage determinations. Again, all of these are domains. They're basically databases that were added to the platform. They were all legacy systems that some still exist actually. So you're looking at, who's going to buy what you sell, grants, entity information registration, don't worry about it, and wage determination. And these are pretty easy. Basically you're filtering by location. They're mostly construction contracts, service contracts. When the RFP, RFQ calls it out, that's when you're using them. It's good to have a ballpark either way, but overall, we can get you through and get you bidding right, because there are stipulations there that you need to understand. So definitely, if you're in SCA or Davis-Bacon, reach out to your Ptac. We can help you there. So this is the last section that I'm going to go through. It's the contract data reports. Basically, it's half of Federal Procurement Data System, FPDS, Next Gen. It's all the past contracts, all their information. Honestly, using FPDS these days it's a good set of information, but it's not all good data. Contracting officers are starting to put in bad email addresses. There's bad mods, things like that. So it's easy to throw you. But using contract data, you can start to paint the picture of who's buying what you're selling outside of USA.Spending.gov. But I will say that probably my favorite report here is going to be Small Business Going Report. This gives you every agency's metrics for their small business goals, which if you're prioritizing who your outreach is to, if they're short on their woman-owned small business goal and you're a WSB, it may make sense to prioritize that outreach. You may have a better response rate. So, all this data can be tied together, connect the dots, make it actionable, and put it in place to plan. It's also a great report overall. They're upping small business goals, so it's good to see where they were and where they got to get to. It's it's a lot of data, but if you can get through it efficiently and put a plan in place, you can definitely use this to your benefit. I think that's all I wanted to run through, Shonda. Do you want to see anything specific? Any questions from anybody?
There were a couple comments I think that will be helpful, and I just kind of reserved them. Thank you for going through that, Billy. Let me go back to these. Somebody had posted, I said I would wait because this would help, when somebody was mentioning some of the issues that they had as far as entering their DUNS number. And Jeff Kelly had posted, I guess, the entity validation processing delays. This was a note that came from, I think, SAM back in May 19th.
Yep.
And it was a note that says, due to high demand, entity legal business name and address validation tickets are taking longer than expected to process. They're working on tickets in the order they're received. You can find resources related to this process, but please do not create multiple incidents for the same request. So if you do run into an issue, those of you that are on here, don't, submit multiple tickets, because that's probably going to make it, add to the wait time and probably a little confusion.
And quite honestly, Shonda, we're not any happier about this than you guys. There's no help desk. You have to work through your workspace. I know they're trying to make the flow more efficient, but we don't have any recourse on our end either. We can make sure that you're uploading the correct documentation, that you're filling it out correct and doing that. But as for when they get back to you, I've had a client that's 29 days in now. He's got no recourse.
Yeah, someone else posted that when they went to go check on their help desk ticket, it said that it was resolved, and then they resubmitted and immediately got the same thing. They've been trying to upload their entity verification since April 4th and have not been able to get a resolution.
If they already uploaded their documents, they may want to try and go through the registration process. It may kick them in.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that was Reiku. So you may want to try, like Billy said, go ahead and start the registration process, because it may go through. And then if not, you may want to contact your Ptac counselor to see if they can help you. If that's, oh, okay, they said they completed the registration process. Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, no, that's great. It is getting better. I always say during these presentations, it's not perfect, but those are humans on the other side of this too. They're trying. We just got to kind of roll with the punches and help you guys as best we can.
Okay. Again, thank you, Billy. If there are, as Billy said, any other additional questions, I think it's really wonderful that he saved the actual a live demo, because that makes it helps. Because sometimes having the slides and you may not be able to connect the dots, but then when you do the live demo, you can actually see the website, especially with all the changes. So it definitely helps. So if there are not any additional questions, I will wrap up with just some, again, thank you so much, Billy, for your time. Thank you for those that are participating. They're saying, yes, it was very helpful having a live demo. So for those of you that want to take advantage of more trainings, because we have more trainings to the end of this month, we actually have a training this afternoon, 1 to 3, on certifications. So state certifications, MBE and EDGE certifications from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 3, the federal certifications. So your WOSB, EDWOSB, HubZone, 8A, we'll be covering that from 2 to 3. And then next week, let me go to my schedule because we have so many I don't know. Then the next, on the 14th, it will be business teaming arrangements to federal and federal government contracting. So we'll talk about teaming, joint venturing, June 14th, 10 to 12. And then in the afternoon, from 1 to 2, responding to a federal source assault notification. Then from 2 to 3, responding to a federal RFP, or request for proposal. And then in addition to that, if you have not registered, I love that somebody said they registered for everything. Thank you. If you have not registered for the matchmaker, all of these trainings are in preparation to help you prepare for, help you get ready, so that you have a little bit more background information for the actual Ohio Business Matchmaker, which will be next month, July 13th and 14th in Dayton, Ohio, at the Wright State Nutter Center. The first day of the Matchmaker, the 13th, will be a half day of training, a couple panels. Then we'll have a networking reception after the panels. And then on the 14th, a full day of matchmaking. So you can definitely, I think the early bird registration is about to run up, is about to be over. Thank you. So go ahead and register so you can take advantage of the early bird registration. Again, today's recording will be posted on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website, as well as the Ohio University Ptac website, and look in the chat for those links. With that said, again, thank you so much, Billy, for your presentation. Thank you so much, Sharon. I want to shout out Sharon Hopkins, who is the OU Ptac director down in Athens, and she is behind the scenes, always monitoring and keeping the Zoom platform and actually sending out all of the links for all of these and for all of our, we do dry runs. So I just want to give Sharon a special shout out because she's on all of the webinars that we have. And a lot of times we're doing 2 a day. So thank you so much, Sharon. And again, to Billy. So with that said, everybody enjoy your day. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully you can join us this afternoon or any of the other trainings. The rest of the list of the trainings is on the Matchmaker website. So everybody have a great day, and thank you so much. Hope to see you at the Matchmaker.